Zoning Board of Appeals for July 28, 2014. Tonight, we have two matters before us under new business. Could you tell me which petition you're here for? You're here for Chelmsford Street?
Yeah, Wendy's. Yes.
Okay, okay. So, just housekeeping rules. If you plan on addressing the board, if you could please sign in at the podium, your name and address. And if you have any electronic devices on, make sure they're either turned down or turned off, please. First matter before us is under new business, is ZB 2014-31. The petition's a special permit and variance. The applicant is Planet Neon, property located at 440 Chelmsford Street. And the petitioner seeks special permit and variance approval to install new signage to an existing Wendy's restaurant pursuant to section 6.3 of the zoning ordinance. If you'd like to approach the podium, sir, introduce yourself.
Planet Neon, and I'm here to represent the Wendy's at 440 Chelmsford Street for they're remodeling their store, their restaurant with a new look, and I'm here to hopefully get approved for some new signage.
Okay. Have you represented Wendy's before? Any other properties?
I have.
Yeah, in the city of Lowell?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, no other.
I'm starting to get to know the sign people.
Oh.
Not that you have to look familiar, but you
Right.
didn't look familiar. So why don't you tell us about the signage that's being proposed and the reasons behind it. I know you talked about renovation of the
Right,
facility.
Wendy's is redoing all their restaurants across the country, and they've changed their logo. They've updated it, along with a new look for the Wendy's girl themselves, the cameo, what they call the Wendy's cameo. And along with that, they're removing the old signage, which is obsolete. It's all neon signs, which draws a lot of power, and going to LED, which is much more efficient and more conservative. So there's, on the drawings, there's quite a few signs there. I guess the main thing I thought was the large sign, the pylon sign, the road sign. Wanted to reface that particular sign, and I got a letter here from the board, and I guess there was a question on the size of the sign. Excuse me. And so, of course, we'd like to keep that size because it's been here for so long, but the cost of it, to remove it, with the footings, it's quite a large sign with large concrete footings, and to change it over, I'm sure the cost would be maybe $30,000 as opposed to maybe $4,500.
So is the proposal to replace the existing signage, not to either increase or decrease all the signs?
Of all the signs?
Mm-hmm.
There is some increase if the bylaws allow it.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, you just mentioned the one that's on the street.
Oh, the street sign.
Yeah.
The only thing different, there's a, I think you have a picture of it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is the same, except for the Wendy's girl. What they, instead of being part of the face itself, they've made it like a 3D dimension, and it's attached to the sign, and it turns out to be a little bit larger than what's existing right now. So it goes above the old sign. I think it's 16.5 inches.
So if the sign's being increased, approximately how much is it being increased, or what percentage?
Oh, percentage-wise, well, I don't have the exact
Well, what's,
well, I would say overall maybe 2%,
Yep, okay,
a 2%
Yep.
increase. And it's just the top of the sign, it just goes over, it's round. What they normally had was a oval-shaped sign, and what they've done is just rounded it out.
yep, okay. And the wall signage, what's happening there? Increasing,
there-
decreasing?
The wall signage, there's one sign on the front and one sign on the back of the building. And so they would like, with their look, certainly one on the front, and to keep the one on the back, which faces the Lowell connector.
Yep.
And they'd also like the one on the right and one on the left for the traffic.
Yep. So in regards to the city's comments that were submitted, and I guess obviously you reviewed them, did you discuss this with Wendy's at all, or?
I did briefly, and, of course, they understand, the laws, the rules of each town and what you have to go through. So right now, they've got about 30 stores going on. So some of the towns we just did a Danvers sign, exact same sign, and they let us have it. As far as the road sign, there was really no changes to the road sign as far as, there's a small percentage of increase. So there really hasn't been an issue with that. But in some cases, the building signs, they're not allowed as many according to the bylaws. So it all depends on the city or the town.
Sure. So Judy, I guess I'll ask a question on behalf of DPD. When the office did the assessment and we received the comments, was there any consideration for existing versus the change? Because obviously it was kind of pointed out a couple of somewhat competitors or business establishments on the same roadway have made sign changes recently. Was there any consideration about the existing signage and the new proposal?
Yes, actually, I talked to one of our designers today, and she said that, in her opinion, it definitely could be narrowed. And also with regard to the pylon sign, the 4 lines of changeable copy, I mean, granted, that's probably a very good use of sign for this type of business. There's quite a bit of reference to quality is our recipe on the pylon sign and on all 4 sides of the building. So that's some new signage that's being added that is not all that as necessary as, the name of the restaurant, the changeable menu, the fact that, they've got a new slogan, quality is our recipe. It is repeated quite a bit on this new sign package.
All right, thank you. Anything else you'd like to add, sir, at this point?
No, I guess that's true. They're trying to, update getting rid of the yellow and just with the red and the white look with the new girl, and their logo or their slogan is "Quality is our recipe," which is, they're trying to show that because of their food is, their hamburgers are never frozen, and they want to show that quality is their recipe, and
Sure.
that's important to them.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the public now and then to the board, and there may be some questions.
Okay.
Anyone here like to speak? Anyone here like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? Favor. Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? Opposition. Opposition. Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. I'd like to open it up to the board. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only issue I have, I guess, is echoing the concerns of the Planning and Development Office, just the fact that in recent years, a couple of restaurants in that area have erected new signs, but have decided to make them a little bit smaller. The Wendy's one stands out now, and so it will stand out again even if it's just built the same size. But I would like to see, and I guess it will depend on the rest of the board, whether or not you or the Wendy's management is willing to go back to the planning office. They're not asking for the entire sign to come down, just so the pylons would stay, but the sign itself to make some attempt to downsize it. So, but I mean, other than that, I mean, we all know this is an area that's very much built up, and it's you can't read all the signs when you're driving down Chelmsford Street. You only see some of them. But I think even if the Wendy's one was brought back a little smaller, it would still certainly be noticed. I don't have any issue with any of the signs on the building itself, however, so. But that's all the only comment I have, no questions.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any comments or questions, really. I agree with the sentiments of my fellow chairman, Mr. Pagliuca, about, so I'll leave it to the rest of the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple of questions for the applicant. But at first, I'd like to start with Judy, if you could, just explain what you meant by narrowing of that pylon sign in the graphic, so that we can basically be on the same page with DPD here.
Yes, one of the comments that was made in the conversation I had with one of our designers was, as you can see, the pylons could stay in the same spot, and you could narrow the actual Wendy's sign, so it was in line with the pylons. And, I mean, you could also shrink that sign. That would decrease, the overall size. The circle image could be decreased. Again, keeping the 4 lines of changeable copy. You probably do want to keep that because that's part of the business, and they'd be advertising specials and that type of thing. The quality could be taken out. That would make the sign smaller as well. So narrowing the Wendy's, narrowing it down to the pylon
Sure.
width.
But that would mean more than resurfacing the sign itself. It would mean rebuilding the cabinet, basically, for the signage, correct?
Well, as far as meeting the zoning ordinance?
No. The idea of DPD to narrow the sign, it would mean disassembling the actual Wendy's component cabinet and rebuilding the cabinet in a smaller size.
It probably would mean rebuilding the cabinet, yes.
That's what you
Yeah.
had. Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
understand where you were coming from.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to understand this second sign. So you have a pickup window open late with a 1 on it, and if I refer to the map, the 1 is the pylon sign, is that correct?
The open late, that's actually, it doesn't show the copy here, but it's actually in between the two, it's located in between the two poles right now. So it's basically,
Got it.
I don't know
Okay.
why they didn't show it here, but
So that's on the pylon sign?
that's on the pylon sign.
And that exists right now as a panel on the pylon sign, but I don't think there's any text on that panel right now. It's kind of blank, is that right?
I'm sorry?
The way the pylon sign is today,
Yes.
that panel exists on the pylon sign, but there's no text in that panel? Is that correct?
No,
just-
it's there, it just says open, it says,
Okay,
it says open late.
okay,
Open late, but when you turn the page and it's just an updated graphic,
Okay.
pickup window, open late. It was yellow before,
okay,
and it just said open late. Now it's just different graphics.
got it, okay. So everything is existing, you're just here because, I think, of illumination, correct? Because internally illuminated signs, your
But-
application
Well,
is for variance for illumination, is that right?
well, it's the pylon sign is be refaced along with the directional signs, and then new signs on the buildings.
But your application says you're looking for a variance for internally illuminated signs, is that correct? You're not looking for a variance for increasing signage areas?
No, from what I understood, the allowance of the signs were okay, and the only thing that was really the issue was the pylon sign, because it's a little bit higher than it was before, because of the
Okay,
Wendy's Girl.
So I just want to be clear, what is the variance that's being sought after today by the applicant?
The actual wall signs are allowed. They are adding some wall signs, and you can have a sign on each facade that faces the street, that faces an entrance, or faces a parking lot. So the special permit's being requested for the illumination. And as you can see, if you look at the map that shows the sign key, it's indicated on the map which ones are new and which ones are just simple replacements.
The way it's written, it says a special permit and variance. So are we looking for both a special permit and a variance, or just a special permit for the illumination?
Well, it would be a variance in terms of the size of the pylon sign.
So it's a variance for increasing
For
signage area?
increasing the signage area.
Okay. And that's basically 16 and a half inches higher than the
Right, if you-
oval that currently exists?
Right, if you look at the cut on the side,
I see it, yep,
Yeah.
you can see where it's going higher, right?
right.
So you're making a very busy sign even bigger. Not by much.
No, I know it, that's, in this particular case, it's a larger sign than, each of the
Got it.
towns and locations are allowed certain square footage, right? So this one turns out to be just
Right.
in ratio to the sign.
And then there's LED lighting being proposed. Is that on the pylon sign as well?
The pylon sign?
Yes.
It's on the girl, but not on the main sign, not in all this is still illuminated with fluorescence, because the cost of that would be really, really high. They haven't got the pricing down enough where that's,
So you really are only resurfacing and minimizing the cost of the new signage. You're just really going at it with a very minimalist approach as far as reusing existing as much as possible?
yes.
Yep, okay. All right. I guess I understand it now, so thank you. I have no further questions.
So, based on Dennis's questions, are we saying there are new signs? Judy, did you say, you're talking about the signs signs should not be facing the parking lots, is that correct?
No, you can have a wall sign that does face a parking lot.
Okay,
So,
I
yeah, in this instance,
misunderstood.
you can have a sign on each side of this building, because there are 3 sides that face the parking lot, and of course, there's the one that faces the frontage.
Okay, just want to make sure
Yeah.
I heard that. Thank you. Van?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the applicant. I think it's always a good thing when you have the ability to upgrade and kind of revamp, your operating design, facade look. But I do agree with the Department of Plan Development and my colleagues. There's been a few businesses in the area that rebranded their signs, and, they scaled their sign down or really configure it to what the zoning requires. So, this is just my comment. I think that, you should just go back and work with the DPD and just come up with a plan or layout that is, compromising to Wendy's and to the city. So, but aside from that, I wish you the best of luck. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Is there a particular size that you'd be happy with as far as downsizing that? Well, I shouldn't be assuming, but I'm thinking that this top is the main part that is, because that's what's being changed the most, or at all, because of the girl. So if that was reduced to a narrower size, you know, is there a percentage or a square footage?
It's oversized right now for the street only because the new construction that's going on, the revamping of the signage packages, all are scaling back the signage to something that's more reasonable for the vehicular traffic on the street. And so matching, I think the comment on DPD's notes there to make it narrower is spot on, 108, 9 feet, and then the pylons are probably another, 10 inches or 12 inches beyond that. So you're talking about 10 feet wide. I think if you made the Wendy's block 10 feet wide, you would be addressing our concerns in a reasonable manner. I think 10 feet sounds like it's
What was that, 10 feet?
10 feet, right?
In other words, 10 feet wide?
10 feet wide would match, I think, probably out-to-out dimension of the pylons, as well as the 9 feet. You have a dimension on your plan of 9 feet roughly.
So you're talking about the top half of it?
Top half, right?
The Wendy's logo itself?
Exactly.
So 10 feet wide instead of, that would be 144 inches rather than 168?
120 inches instead of 100.
Oh, excuse me, you said 10 feet, 120. I'm thinking, yeah,
That's all right.
120
That's right.
instead of 168.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
And as far as the height?
I think you need to do the graphic to understand how that proportion
Right.
works. And so I think when you reduce that Wendy's label, you may find that the girl being reduced in size might make sense. So I think you're just going to have to make something look right. As far as
Okay.
that. I would imagine because that whole Wendy's piece will be reduced, that the image of the girl would also follow suit.
Right, and sure, it would be reduced accordingly.
Yeah,
So the poles themselves would be fine, not,
exactly.
and then it's just removing the top cabinet and replacing it with a smaller cabinet.
And when you do that, you might be able to introduce the LED fixtures to the
They're
cabinet.
not, I mean, for the girl, yes, but
All right. thought I'd ask.
it's, I've priced some of those things out. I don't think anybody's doing it yet. Maybe a few, but it's just when you use all those LED lights up and down to try to get the illumination for it, it's quite expensive. Because it's two sides, and to get, the light, the cabinet itself. So, for all my experience, I know the Sonic restaurant, they asked to do it, and I priced it out, and they said, oh, no, I don't think we'll do it. Because it was just, they thought it was a good thing, but they said, well, I didn't think it was gonna be that much money. So they can do certain things, like the channel letters on the building, or those were neon, with neon transformers. So now you go from 20 amps to 2 amps on that sign, the same sign. Actually, even it's probably more like 24 amps to 2 amps. So it's a lot less power. On those, they can do it because it's a smaller surface, but when you try to get into a big, a sign face, they haven't got the brightness down yet. You have to use so much LED that it's almost a wall of LED, instead of the lamps. And the fluorescent lamps are pretty efficient.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just ask a follow-up question
Absolutely.
for you.
Yep.
I just wanted to, for myself, clarify, are you keeping the existing cabinet and just adding the new Wendy's figure, or are you putting in a whole new cabinet
Well,
with,
no.
with the Wendy's?
It was, I'm here to, was just gonna reface the existing sign as you see it here. That's all the existing sign, and then the girl here is, it's a separate cabinet.
Right,
But it's
but you're-
round, and that was gonna be put on, in place of the old girl, you know, where she was. So it's a little, it's rounder rather than oval.
Okay. I'm not sure if, I mean, I'd like to see the sign reduced, but I was thinking that a whole new cabinet was being built as opposed to refacing the one that's there and then adding the picture of the new Wendy's logo. So I don't want, I mean, I'd like to see the applicant work with DPD, but if it means having to tear down and rebuild a new cabinet, and if that's a prohibitive cost, I actually wouldn't, want that burden put on the applicant as opposed to just having it
Right.
resurfaced or refaced and adding the,
There'd be reface except for the girl. That's a separate, small aluminum LED lit face.
I mean, I think I don't know if someone else would make a motion to ask the applicant to at least just meet with DPD and the design planner just to see. I think A, it can be done, but B, if it's going to be cost prohibitive to rebuild or tear down and then build a new cabinet, and then come back. But I'll wait for the chairman to speak. Thanks.
Well, if I understood the dialogue between you and Member Dennis here, I believe we weren't talking about really doing a lot of retrofitting on the existing pylon sign. It sounded like you were following what Dennis's recommendation was as far as the change. So we weren't talking about any major overhaul to the sign, is that correct?
Right, the cabinet was
Right.
gonna remain the same, it was just changing the faces.
Right. So a couple of things I just want to make sure of is, so we talked about that. Now, does any other members have any other comments about the other signs before I don't believe there were any other comments. So I think we're only talking about the pylon sign.
Right.
Are you in agreement with that also?
Mhm.
Okay. So I guess I'll defer to you, sir. Do you want to, are you willing to go with the changes that we've talked about here? Or if you feel like you need to go back to your client and discuss that we can certainly do that also.
So the new change would be, well, that would be a new cabinet, and if that's what the city wants, I'm sure they'll do it, I
Well,
mean-
I'll speak for myself. I think it's pretty fair and equitable because, DPD did their analysis, but I'm also cognizant that the business has been there for as many years as they have. So, and I'll agree with Mike. I don't think we're in the business to try to incur additional costs to businesses. I mean, here's a case, if this was a brand-new startup, then fine.
Oh, right.
We'd be more probably in line, but because of the existing condition and the sign is basically oversized to begin with. Does that sound correct, Judy? So I think we as a board, unless somebody wants to chime in, I don't think our intent here is to incur a lot of cost, but we're very sensitive to the city's position on signage. I know I kind of repeat myself, but signage is always kind of a issue with this board anyway.
Oh, sure, I understand.
Do you have a comment? Yeah.
I don't know if aluminum box is an extravagant investment to make. So you're really only talking about, you're saying you're going to go back to the fluorescent fixtures that are already part of the sign. If we had the 16-foot wide box reduced to 10 feet? I'm sorry, 14-foot wide box reduced to 10 feet.
To 10 feet, right.
Is that an extravagant cost? I mean, you're already resurfacing all these signs
Well,
and you're adding the sign for the woman, girl.
I mean, that's better than tearing the whole thing down.
Sure.
Yeah, and starting off with, say, a smaller sign, whatever sign. So that would be pretty good to keep the poles there, and then having a sign fit to that. So I think that might be acceptable to them.
Right. I don't think it's an extravagant cost for an aluminum box.
Oh, all right.
So I think reducing that per DPD's comments makes sense, going from 14 to 10.
So what would be the procedure?
So it'd be having a condition that you follow DPD's suggestion of reducing the sign and narrowing the sign to 10 feet,
Okay.
plus minus. I think would be the
10
condition.
feet
I'd like to
wide and then scaled to whatever the top is, but it certainly would be smaller.
see. Correct, yeah.
So I guess with that said, just to keep belaboring this, is the variance still in effect? Are we bringing it down so we don't have to talk about the variance, or are we still at the variance stage? As we talked about
Can-
the, what was it, 1.5 foot
Well-
increase, but are we taking that down now?
Without actually doing the calculations on it, because it was a, as he said, a small percentage increase with the larger face of the Wendy's girl. By reducing that cabinet from these, was 14 feet to 10, I think you do get that reduction in size. So I don't think you would need the variance in
Right.
size. It
So
really is,
we
it's
would
just
just-
the illumination.
Okay, so what, do you
Well,
follow
the
so
only
far?
thing, I'm looking at this from a practical standpoint, it's 108 inches between the sign, you see that area right over here, it's 108 inches. So, and the poles are, I believe, are 10 inches, so you've got to add another 20 inches, that's 128 inches. So the sign would have to be wide enough to hit the poles if it was 10 feet.
Maybe we settle on 11 feet. as the-
Yeah, something
sound
that would
fair?
be, something that would, so you wouldn't have
That sounds fair.
I mean, it would be reduced,
Good point.
but,
You'd still be able to build the box in 11 feet. would give you-
yeah, you'd have to have enough room to put it on the poles. If it's 10 feet, it's not, it's gonna sit on half of the pole, so it has to be safe, sound, structurally, so it'd have to be a little bit wider than that.
But I think that still gives you room to fit within the current area with the additional girl symbol on top of that sign. So it wouldn't be a variance even at 11 feet, I don't think, required. So it'd just be the special permit for illumination that we'd be looking at. You follow what I'm saying?
No, can you say that again?
So you'd have the total sign area still being reduced,
It's gonna be reduced.
even with the additional square footage that you're adding, whatever that image is of the girl at the top of the sign.
Right.
So you have plenty of room to get a slightly larger girl if you need to for
Yeah.
graphic reasons.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to ask about the variance. So I think we'll accomplish that, but, so the condition we're talking about is adjusting the plans as submitted. That's the first thing, which I would probably request that those plans be re-reviewed by DPD prior to any work. That way, we'll know that the city is in agreement with the agreed-upon change. And then secondly, we're only talking about the special permit for the illumination is what we'll be voting on tonight. But before we go there, I just want to make sure, are you comfortable? Do you fully understand what we're talking about, the change?
Okay, so the existing sign as it stands right now, you have the open late, which is the bottom sign. That's just a face change, correct? That's acceptable?
Yep.
Okay, and then the reader board, which is quality as a recipe, that's a face change in both sides, of course, and that's acceptable. So now we get to the top part, and we're gonna reduce it to a size smaller than it is right now, that fits to the existing poles. If it's 130 inches, it's 130 inches, or 132 inches, whatever that might be. that's okay.
Any other comments before we move along? No?
We didn't ask about hours of illumination. What are the hours of illumination?
The hours?
How late is it on the signage? Is it 24 hours, 7 days? a
Oh,
week?
no, it's not. It's, gee, they're open late, whatever the town, isn't it 2 o'clock? It could be 2 o'clock, whatever the town allows. And, you know, but it's not every night, I don't think. It's certain nights, and they adjust those. But it's
Right.
not,
So you have no idea for this site what their hours of illumination is?
I don't know, because,
So generally, I think we continue with the existing,
Hours of
not,
illumination, 2
unless, Judy, you have anything on that? I don't know what time the lights go out, but I would say we just go with the existing.
Yeah, I don't know myself what the terms are currently, but I would say, yeah, you can go with the existing.
Yep.
yeah, when they're closed, they close.
So maybe the next time you come in here, if you're in here for another location, you can ask them what time they turn their lights off. So
Okay.
you can sound like you're really on your game. Okay. We all set for a motion, please?
So can I
Yep,
ask you a question?
sure.
So the motion is to make it smaller, the top part, and so I have some graphics made and come back to the, not to the board, but to,
Right. You're going to submit your changes back to DPD. They'll review them to ensure that what you're resubmitting meets the condition that we're putting forward. this
okay.
evening.
And do I come back in front of you again? No, it just needs to be approved according to what you set forth now. Okay, and even though it's not exact,
Well, I'm sure Judy and her staff will be
Okay.
more than happy to work with you
okay,
to get it right.
okay,
Okay?
sounds great.
All right. All set now?
All right, thank you.
Okay. No, thank you. Go ahead, Dan.
So I need to put
Brief, motion, please.
Through Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2014-031 for a special permit to install new signage at an existing Wendy's restaurant at 440 Chelmsford Street with the following conditions: that the pylon sign be reduced in width to be no more than 11 feet wide, plus or minus, and that the applicant reissue plans to DPD to assure the acceptance of the condition. Second condition would be that the hours of illumination remain as they currently are at the site.
Second the motion.
Okay. Did you mention special permit? Yeah. Good. Okay. Second, could I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Peck,
Approve the conditions.
Chairman Bailey,
Oh, excuse me.
Approve with conditions.
Chairman McCarthy,
Approve with conditions.
and Chairman Callahan,
Approve the conditions.
and Chairman Padlia.
Approved with conditions.
Okay, sir, you've been approved with conditions. I
Okay,
wish you the best of luck.
thank you very much, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Do I need my email address here?
I'm sorry?
Do I need my email address? Okay.
Okay, so our next matter, I'll read it into the record. ZB 2014-35. It's a variance for the applicant Kenneth Mellon and Don Perlack. Property is located at 248 Avon Street. And the petitioner seeks variance approval to pave within setbacks from lot line and building pursuant to section 6.11 of the zoning ordinance. Judy, did you have any communication with them at all prior to tonight's meeting?
I have not communicated with them. I did have a talk with Swati today, and she gave me the background of the application, but I have not communicated with them.
Well, I think we need them in attendance, and maybe they weren't aware of it, or maybe the weather caused an issue. So my recommendation would be that we... Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. I thought, okay, oh, there you go.
I'm solo, but I'm here.
Sorry about that.
No, not a problem.
I saw you get up, and I thought you were walking with the other gentleman.
No, Him and I got lost trying to get in here, so I became
Now,
friends.
that's a first for me on this board, you know? Oh, they didn't show up, so let's just wait till
Yeah.
next one.
After $740, I'm gonna show
Yeah,
up.
sorry about that.
Paperwork?
Okay, so at least I officially read it into the record, so are you Ms. Perlak?
I'm Dawn Perlak, yes.
Hi, Dawn, how are you?
Good, how are you?
So, Dawn, could you tell us about your petition, please?
My petition is to pave the other side of my driveway. I had come in front of the board back in 2004. I had a single-family house, and I was on 2 lots, so I sought permission to turn it to a 2-family. When I did that, I was working with the building department because they didn't want the house to be anything crazy looking. They wanted it to fit into the neighborhood. So I had a driveway on the side that was already paved, but it was only a 1 spot. And one of the conditions that the zoning board had said is, if we're gonna grant you this 2-family, we don't want people having to pull out. We want 2 spots designated on both sides in the front. You can pave the other side, but we have to have 2 spots. So any of the tenants would be able to back out and they weren't constantly moving the cars. So they approved the 2-family for me to build it. So then in 2005, I started construction. It took me 5 years to finish the house because I got divorced, and it took me 5 years to finish it myself. Back in 2005, I had one of the driveways scraped up, and the other one I had them all put down with the different, the crushed stone and the surfacing, figuring I would pave it after I was finished doing the house. But when I found out how much it was gonna cost to pave, I couldn't do it. So it took me a couple of years to come up with the money to pave it. So when I went back, last year I got an estimate, and I found out I had to have a permit. So after I got the estimate, I saved up the money, and then I had them come out back in May, and they told me that I had to come in front of you, because the engineering department, the way that they read it was, there were no, when we went in front of the board meeting back in 2004, there were no really minutes from it stating that we could pave the other side. It was just, they told me to do what the other side, to mirror the other side. So if you look at the house actually mirrors the other side. So now I have one side that's paved all the way up to the foundation, and then I have another side that's paved halfway, and all the water's now starting to pool there. So I'm seeking to pave the whole thing. I think I submitted pictures. You can actually see it. They actually made me leave a 3-foot buffer. I actually have a retaining wall that runs all the way down, and when they let me pave the other side, half of it, I had to leave like this buffer, which is like all weeds now, and I didn't know if I could pave right up to the retaining wall. Just because when you go to pull in there now, it's kind of hard, because sometimes we have a truck, and the truck doesn't always sit on the whole driveway now.
You know, like, I guess I'll speak for myself. When I went out there, you know, I looked obviously at the front of the house, and I noticed, I said, well, it looks like we just want to mirror what's on the right. Now we went on the left. But it was interesting, every time I kept looking at the left-hand side, probably because there's no paving, it looked like a smaller area than what was on the right, but
They're almost the same.
I think that's because it's like half paved and then it goes to,
It looks odd.
so that's all we're talking about while
just
you're
wanna
here, is
pave
just
it.
to fill it in and match up. So Judy, at the end of the day, is the real reason the petition is in here is because of the, I call it the new set of rules on paving driveways, and is that why this petition is really in here this evening, or is there something else driving this?
Yes, it's here because there is a requirement to allow 3 feet clearance on the property line and also from the building itself. So this would be a variance, dimensional variance, basically. So the pavement should not
Yep.
go any further than, should be, again, 3 feet left on the side close to the building, 3 feet from the property line.
All right, so we're taking 6 feet away.
Right.
So
No,
what's the actual width there
13 and a half feet.
from the
From
building?
the house. And the way that it was designed, my windows, I don't know if you've had a chance, the windows are only a couple inches off the ground because it was supposed to be paved. Now, now the water's just all coming off the gutters and just pooling near the windows, and I'm afraid down the road that I'm actually gonna get water damage if I don't get the water to come away from the house. And it's kind of hard to, like, if you left 3 feet, there's a retaining wall. I'm actually lower than my neighbors, so I get a lot of the runoff from their hill to my driveway. Now, with it not being paved, I actually took a picture today on my way here. I had a puddle behind where the hot top stopped. I have a huge puddle because the water's coming down from their hill, and it can't get over the brim, so it's all pooling.
All right. Okay, anything else you want to add at this point?
No, I just
No.
hope I can pave it.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I'm going to open it up to the public. Anyone here like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor, hearing none. That portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? Opposition, hearing none. That portion of public hearing is closed. I'd like to open it up to the board. Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple questions and or a comment. I actually remember when the driveway ordinance or the change in the driveway ordinance was written, and it was because they're across the city or in certain neighborhoods, there are people that are paving their entire front lawn, side lawn, and backyard so that they can get more cars onto the property. So I'd like to make sure, I went by there Sunday, I think it was. It was raining, so I did see that puddle starting to form at the back of the driveway. But I would just hope that there wouldn't be any more paving on this site, because you have done a good job in the front with the retaining wall and the landscaping that's there, and I didn't go into the backyard, but it's sort of a somewhat wooded area,
Yeah,
so.
there's a hill that runs off, so we have the water that runs down, and then it runs into the sewer across the street.
Okay.
No, I'm not gonna pave the whole yard, no. It took me this long to pave it. Yeah.
So a couple of questions that I had, I think one had to do, sort of related, there's a couple of 2 or 3 trees that are right on the lot line where your neighbor's retaining wall is, and I don't know, I'm hoping that they're not on your property and that you'd be taking them down to sort of complete the paving.
No, the retaining wall is actually my property, so they kind of fall in between. I don't know if she's gonna take them down. I know that the trees are actually starting to go into her foundation, like going up towards her foundation, so I don't know what her plans are down the road, but they're actually joint trees.
But you wouldn't be taking them down as part of, just to make
Pave the
it,
driveway?
make it easier to pave the driveway out to the...
No, they don't interfere with the driveway.
Okay.
Because there's a
Well,
retaining.
from my view from the street, it was just, I couldn't quite tell. It looked like one was coming up almost through the wall and one was
Nope.
on one.
They're
Okay.
actually, there's a big, I don't know if they're called railroad ties, they're actually on the other side of it. So they don't really come, and when they came out to pave this part of the driveway, they actually, I don't know what you call it, but they went over it with the machine to pack that down, and the roots don't interfere with me.
Okay.
And I don't want to take the trees down.
Okay.
I have no need to.
And then the other question I had was, obviously your neighbor, I think, would have been notified, correct,
yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Yes,
and they're not in opposition to the paving on that side?
No, we haven't heard from anyone in opposition.
Okay. And then the last question I had was just how many people live on your side?
On my side,
That would
it's
re-
just, I have 3 kids, but one's away in the service. So I have one that lives at home, and I have a daughter, she doesn't drive, and my fiance. So we have usually 3 cars.
Okay, so so you'd have one in the back, along the side of the house,
We put-
and then 2 cars in the existing that's close to the street?
Right. What we try to do is on our street, there's only actually 6 houses that belong on the street. The other 2 are on East Meadow.
Right.
There's actually a parking driveway that's not even supposed to be there, but we're trying to get the cars off the street in the wintertime, because if you don't take your cars off the street, that street does not get plowed all the time. So if you want to plow the driveway, or the street, you know, you really have to put it down, your cars off the road, because when the truck does come, he only makes one pass up. So if the cars are there, you know, that's why to pave it, I can get the cars off the road too. You know, I can actually fit 1, 2, 3, 4 in the driveway.
Okay, thank you. No further questions or comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions, but I will say I did have a chance to swing by the place earlier, and I do see the concerns with regards to the driveway and how it's set up, and
Yes.
Hopefully there isn't a big, huge puddle sitting out there now after the big storm we just had, but that's the only comment I had. So.
Thank you, Sean. Dennis?
Through Mr. Chairman, I just want to get a little bit of history here, if we could. The application that we received here includes a plan that was approved back in 2004, but doesn't show the existing pavement. So I think it's meant to show the existing conditions and the proposed conditions. So we see on this plan the existing footprint of the existing house and the existing garage in the back. But the existing paved area for that driveway doesn't show up on this plan that was approved.
Which one, you're talking about, the old one?
Well, on the plan that was approved, so I don't know if you have a copy of that,
Which one are we talking about, the 2004?
2004, right? So it doesn't make note of the existing pavement that was
I actually have,
accessing the garage, and it doesn't make note of the existing pavement going to the face of the house or to the property line. So I just wanted to understand the history there. Was that existing pavement changed?
when the house was, when the plans, I think I have the original one that came in, the driveway, when I bought the house in 93. That was all paved.
And was it paved to the edge
To
of the house?
To the
and
edge of the
then
house.
to the
yep,
property line?
To the property line, yep.
Okay.
The house, that's how it was. When I started construction of the house, or when they drew up the plans, the driveway, the way that the driveway was, it had started to, when the machines came to take out the truck, to take the roof and that, the driveway was already starting to fall apart. And when I had it just paved, there were still pieces of the driveway.
Okay.
So it wasn't a complete solid, but you'd have a piece here, you'd have a piece there. It wasn't, so that's
Bit
when
of
I
a
think he
mess.
drew the plans. He didn't, because it wasn't completely a driveway. Does that make sense? It was
Yep.
pieces everywhere.
And what is changed also with what is existing is the proposed parking spaces in front of the existing unit, I think are paved currently to the property line. And on the approved plan, they had been looking at providing a 3-foot space between the property line and the first parking space, so that's a change as well.
On the side that I want to pave,
No, on your existing. I'm just looking at the changes from what was approved in 2004 to what's currently.
2004, that's when I went in front of the board in 2004, back then, the driveway, we didn't really discuss, it wasn't, the driveway wasn't the issue. What it was is they wanted to make sure that I had 2 spots designated. So it wasn't,
Okay.
back then, it was just show me the 2 spots that you have so that when we convert this to a 2-family, you can show that you have 2 parking on each spot for someone to back up. The driveway was already existing. It was already paved up to the property line previously. I don't know why he didn't do it on the 2004
Okay.
plan.
All right. I did notice that across the street, you do have that one catch basin. And the property across the street, just, I guess, north of you on Avon Street, is relatively low, and your house sits up relatively high. And so the way the drainage works there on your site is that it comes into the street when it rains.
And curves down, because he has a berm that runs all along the front
And
of
he
his.
has a curb
Yep.
that's not very high, and he has that one catch basin, but his house is relatively low. And so we would be increasing the pavement and the runoff from your lot across the street to that one catch basin that could be maintained a little bit better, actually, because
Right.
it does puddle quite a bit there.
He's never, he's a good friend of mine. He's never had any water issues. He's never.
I would imagine he would be here tonight if he did.
Yeah, no, and I
Right.
understand your point.
All right.
But the way that it slopes, in the way that, I don't know, have you been by there in the rain? The water actually comes, and with the way that
No, I see it, I saw it. I
it
saw
goes
it go
right
to the
into the
catch
basin.
right.
I know
but
the basin isn't, I don't think it's maintained too well. I think it's,
It isn't maintained well enough. Someone in the neighborhood probably needs to go over there and clean it out, or the city does, whatever. But your house is beautiful,
Oh,
and
thank
your
you.
landscaping, it's quite
Thank you.
nicely done. I do like the idea of preserving the 3-foot green strip, though, on the property line. I could understand your interest in paving right to the house. I understand that interest, and so I'm just thinking, right now, you do have that 3-foot gap for the
in the front.
grass in the front, and I think that continuing that up the property line would be important to minimize the additional pavement on the site. 13.5 is a wide dimension for a driveway. I think we only really require 8 feet. So if you called it 10-foot 5, that would be above and beyond what you need to have, and it would continue that green strip and minimize the pavement and the additional runoff to the city sewer system that would need to take, drainage system, that would need to take that.
But I think leaving that 3-foot strip is, there's a retaining wall right there, so I would have a 3-foot strip of,
It would continue as you currently have. You currently have a 3-foot strip there now at that
well,
first
right
parking
now it's all
space.
open, it's all one,
No, the first 2 parking spaces don't go to the property line. There's a
Right.
3-foot green strip there, and I think continuing that up along the property line to minimize the amount of paved surface would be a reasonable request, rather than the whole 13-foot 6 to go to 10-foot 6.
I hope that's not your decision, because that would be leaving a 3-foot strip in the parking area. The 13 feet to the house is not really that wide of a space.
Well, you need room to get out of the vehicle anyway, and you're certainly not parking in that 3-foot space anyway. And it would allow for planting and for a buffer between you and the property line as intended with the zoning, and that's why we have it in the zoning. And it would be continuing what was already established back in 2004 with that 3-foot strip when it was built, or when it was approved. That would be my preference, but I'll listen to the other board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Van.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the applicant. Overall, I think this makes sense. Like you said earlier, it's pretty much mirroring the other side. So the other side has its own driveway, and I hear what Mr. McCarthy is saying, but I think for me, a 3-foot difference it's not going to make or break the driveway. So, overall, I think this is a good project, and it's in line with the character in the neighborhood, and you don't have any opposition. So I assume that all the abutters and neighbors support this. So overall, I think this is a good project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, I think some of the discussion answered some of the questions I had. Like I say, when I went by, all I had envisioned was what was on the right was going to be the same thing on the left. I didn't give any sense to the property lines, and I know this is like a history lesson now, Judy. If we go back in history, why was the right done the way it was done? I can only go on what I see today. I assume it was done correctly. So if we look at what the requirements are with, the 3 and 3, I'm in a complete agreement with Dennis. If we have the driveway run, you mentioned about runoff from your house and how it's backing up against the house and windows and whatever. So that kind of makes sense to me. The 3-foot, I'll call it buffer on the left-hand side on the property line, visually I'm picturing what Dennis is talking about, and I'm just trying to understand from your perspective, what do you gain or lose by having the grass there versus the pavement on the property side only?
For me, I put my garbage barrels on the side there. So I usually park my school bus right up to near the retaining wall. So not having having to leave that grass it's just gonna be a mess, and I'm gonna have to maintain more,
Yeah.
grass or flowers and, and that, say if you put mulch there, that mulch is gonna be running off into
Yep.
the drains because,
Yep. Well, I'm trying, like I say, I sat in front of the house, and I can't say I really studied the left-hand side of the house.
I think I
Where-
gave you pictures.
Well, Dennis mentioned the grass runs up.
Well, I don't have grass
Could be
right,
an extension, huh? What's that?
I don't have grass on that side, like where that is, because the yard is so much lower. That's all just, crushed stone and there's only, they left a patch.
Yeah, and again, when I looked at the house, to me, it was like all pavement in front. I mean, that's the appearance. I didn't study to see what was on the left-hand side. So I'm kind of indifferent about the 3-foot buffer on the left there.
Did you see any of the pictures to see that I am a lot lower than my neighbors?
The pictures?
Yeah, I had a packet that I sent with pictures to actually show you.
I didn't get any
We
pictures,
didn't
Mr.
get any
Chairman.
pictures.
I think she,
We didn't get any pictures. I mean, that's why, it's not like I did a drive-by and just
Right.
kept going. I
try to
was
remember it.
kidding about I couldn't even find your place. I went all the way to the end of the street. But I'll never be in charge of MapQuest. Yeah,
So there's a retaining wall and the house, so that the yard is actually lower.
this is the neighbor, right? This is the left side. Mhm. Yep. 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 Is this, so the existing grass that's on the left-hand side, I don't know if you can,
That's my neighbor's.
oh,
I have the retaining wall right here, and
Okay.
their yard is higher.
all right. So this picture here, this grass
That little
runs
sliver
here.
is,
Yeah, is that on your land?
that's mine, yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I didn't really hear too many board members speak too strongly, whether they're in favor or not in favor of the left-hand side there.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add one comment. We did hear from the engineering office
Yep.
that they do know this property, that it is sloped toward the street, and they are concerned about increased runoff with more pavement on the property. So I think if there was at least that 3-foot strip on the side of near the property line, even if it was crushed stone, it would allow for infiltration rather than more runoff onto the street. Again, that was a concern raised by the engineers.
Well, I mean, to me, we've talked about it on the board before about, I know we've had a few petitions about putting grass or crushed stone, about runoff. In fact, there was one out by the university, I can remember that particular, that was around a driveway going in, somewhat similar to this here. So the concern, Dennis, I guess I'll just defer to you for a minute. The concern would be if we put some type of either grass or stone or something in there, that's too, I mean, we have a city ordinance, first of all, but the second thing would be around runoff. That would be the main idea of doing this, I would assume, correct?
That's exactly right, and I think you could come up with a solution to maintain that where it would be weed filter mat and gravel, and then you wouldn't have to worry about the grass, but it would solve the issue the city has with increased runoff to that one catch basin, because all of all that additional pavement that you'd be adding, you're asking for the variance for filling in already up against the house, then I'm thinking
Right. But but there's a retaining wall, so wouldn't that, I don't see where it would really be that.
the additional pavement would be adding to the capacity that might be over, the overcapacity that already exists probably on the site for that one catch basin. So I think we want to minimize that and also honor the zoning that requires the 3-foot green strip at property lines in that neighborhood that seems to be honored by a majority of the properties. You do have a lot of built area on this site and a lot of pavement already that one would say is probably close to the maximum that the neighbors have on their sites, so.
Well, further down the street, their whole front, there's no greenery, their whole front end's all paved.
You're right, there are exceptions, but I think the majority of the sites in that neighborhood seem to have a reduced quantity of building and pavement on their sites.
Well, I don't think, we talked about this in the previous petition, our job isn't to make things harder for you and increase costs or whatever. I mean, the paving's you're gonna incur some costs with the paving to begin with. And whether you do stone or grass on that left-hand side, I think it would, it would meet the guidelines, but also because we're giving you the house side, I don't think it's an overburdened. I guess the real decision is whether you went with grass there. And I understand if you're parking a truck and you're worried about in and out, and you're just gonna destroy that area. I think what Dennis was trying to just, pass along is you have other alternatives that, whether you put some small stone or something, which I don't think is gonna cost you
No,
a
it's
lot of
just,
money.
just even for snow plowing it and that, now you've got to watch out for all the rocks or whatever you put there, if you put
Yep.
grass. See, because I know when I pull in there right now,
Yep.
it's 13 and a half feet sounds like it's a big thing, but when you're up against a retaining wall and a house, that's not a lot of space. It's not like it's open space that I'm next to my neighbors. I'm literally, there's only 13 and a half feet. So if you open both doors, or if I have the garbage barrels there, it's not a lot of room. Now we're gonna take 3 feet away from it. So I'm gonna be 10 feet. 10 feet, it's not that big. And I'm not trying to be,
No. Does the driveway on the right-hand side, is that going to run deeper than it does on the left? Because you have like a
no, the left
garage.
goes all the way up to the garage. This doesn't go as far back.
Right.
So the left
left-hand
actually
side
goes
won't
around
as
to the
far
garage
back.
and goes around to the back. Well, not around but halfway around, not,
Yeah,
and then the rest of it's not, the backyard is no pavement or anything.
well, see, why weren't we here in 2004, and then this would have all been
I wish
straightened
you
out? Yeah. Well, I think the difference is the house, the duplex wasn't there in 2004, is that correct?
No, I came in to have it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Go ahead.
I wonder if we could suggest to the applicant, as we did with the last applicant on an unrelated matter, that some sort of compromise be met to not necessarily have or ask for the 3-foot buffer of crushed stone or whatever it would be, but to still ask for some buffer there so that it isn't paved all the way to the retaining wall, if she would be, or if the board would be willing to entertain it being just made a little bit smaller, 2 feet, or if people are set on the 3-foot buffer. That would make it a little easier to plow and so on, allow a little more room for the vehicle and the trash barrels, but still have, and there's already crushed stone on site, so it could all just be pushed over to the retaining wall and still allow for some for drainage before it all gets down to the street. It's just an idea.
Yep. Well,
May have fallen on deaf ears. I don't know, sorry.
No, I think, it's kind of interesting, but you wouldn't think we'd be deliberating this long for 3 feet.
I know.
But, I don't know. I think we do need something over there, but to Mike's point, I'd be willing. And I don't think there's too many options on what can go down. Let's either grass, stone, or, I know you mentioned a third thing, I'm not sure what that was, but,
All I was mentioning was you could put a filter fabric down before you put the crushed stone, so you wouldn't have weeds as an issue, and it would always stay as a reasonable condition, but would allow for the zoning bylaws to be addressed with the 3-foot buffer for minimizing the amount of pavement that you have on site and minimizing the impact that we would have from the drainage to that existing catch basin across the street.
Would it really make that much more of an impact on the drainage?
Well, you're talking about 34 feet by 3 feet, so that's a sizable square footage that you'd be, right? The whole length of that is 34 feet. So
What
you're
happens if
almost
I-
100 square feet of additional pavement you're adding to the site by paving that, which I think is substantial.
What happens if I left the front part that's already not paved, that up into where it meets, to where the house meets, and then and pave right where it really gets tight between the house and the retaining wall where the trees are, and left that whole front part not paved?
I'm
Because
not
the
quite
issue is where it gets tight next to the house and the retaining wall.
I'm not quite understanding the front part that you're
Well,
talking
right
about.
here, it's not paved right now.
Yes,
And if I left from there to where the house is.
but that's what's required by the approval in 2004 to leave that as a 3-foot green strip anyway.
In 2004, when I went in front, there was no ordinance that had to leave 3 feet for green space.
What was approved, the document that was approved shows a 3-foot green strip. Is that correct?
I wish there were more notes from the meeting, because the driveways weren't really, it was more of the house that came up in the 2 spaces. I submitted many plans. I worked with the building department to design the house, to get it to look like the other side. I know this might be irrelevant, but there was a house next to me that did the same thing that I did. Before, when I went in front of the zoning board, they wanted my house to look like a single family. But the neighbor next door, they didn't have to do that. They only have, when I was doing a duplex, I had to have it look like it was one whole house. And if you look at the house on the corner, all they did was put a little attachment, and it looks like it's 2 separate houses. So, I really was working with the city to make the house blend. And that's why the driveway looks like they look identical.
Would there be any relief in the depth, the 34 feet, if that was reduced by 100 square feet in that direction? So instead of going 34 feet back, you went 30 feet back?
Well, there's I put a flower bed right there, and I just wanted to go up to the flower bed, just so that I understand what you guys are saying, and I don't mean to be a pain. I understand the buffer, but this isn't like every other case. It's like if my yard was the same height as the other people, then I wouldn't even be here asking if I didn't have the retaining wall. I am so much lower, and I'm kind of confined. So now if I leave a 3-foot buffer, it's going to look, first of all, it's going to diminish the size to parking. So I'm really going to have to be right on top of the house, and it's going to look odd.
It's not a requirement of looking on it, it's the impact that we're doing for the drainage, as well as the fact that we're providing a 3-foot buffer for lots in the neighborhood. You're asking for 460 square feet of additional pavement with this dimension that you're showing here. And we're suggesting that it be 100 square feet less. as per zoning. Actually, not, that's not even per zoning would be requiring the additional 200 square feet less, because you'd be looking at 300 feet, a 3-foot strip along the house, so. You're asking for 460 additional paved surface to be added to that catch basin across the street.
I know you're trying to solve an issue with the catch basins, you know, getting too much water in that, but down the road, aren't eventually the catch basins gonna have to be upgraded sometime? Like, I'm trying to be a pain, but you know, this has been around for a long time. So, I mean, if you cut down on me, eventually, even if you did not allow it, those are eventually gonna have to be upgraded.
Well, I don't know. All right, does any of the board members feel strongly what we as a board like to do with this? I think we're talking about 3 feet, plus or minus, I guess, more on the minus side, I guess, what we want to do here. Because the more I look at this thing, to me, it's, you know, if we're going to give the paving all the way up to the house on the right, so now we're talking about the 3 feet on the left. If I look at the plot plan, it's 12.1 is the distance, it looks like, from the unit to the property line, and this is 13.5. Okay, so it already has a little bit more on that left-hand side anyways, which is kind of interesting, because, again, I think it's the way the house, the addition was put on there. The appearance to me on the left looks like it's not even as wide as the right, but that just goes to show you, I think that's the effect of the pavement gives, you know what I mean? So that's why I still think we need to have something on that left-hand side. Me personally, I don't think it has to be 3 feet, you know, I don't want to split hairs, but is it 3 feet, is it 2 feet? Is it 1 foot? I mean,
And that's why I made the suggestion, Mr. Chairman, just that if, again, I think the direction we're going is that we're going to ask for a buffer along the retaining wall. So, right, we could say 2 feet, we could say 1.5 feet, and then it would exactly match the driveway on the other side. It would be, or if it was, right, if it was 1.5 feet that we asked for.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think we got to have something there, so that's why I'm kind of reaching out to the members if they.
well, then I would like to suggest to the applicant and the members, if they're in agreement, that the buffer be less than is allowed by through the ordinance, which is 3 feet, and suggest that there be a buffer there, but reduced to 1.5 feet. And that would be a 12-foot driveway on that side, and the other side is 12.1. So almost be an identical match.
And I guess that's where I'm going with it, but I think the other thing, it doesn't have to be conditioned, but I would probably also throw out, since you've had some interaction with the city, you may want to reach out to DPD. Maybe they can assist you with that green area, we'll call it, to try to mitigate some of your concerns that you have with that area. But I think we have to do something there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I think that's fair and reasonable from this board, because, you know, we could have taken the right and the left and left it at that, but, you know, again, as I tell people, I don't think that's the purpose of the board, is to, you know, we're trying to assess it. I mean, you got a nice looking piece of property there. You've been there for, you know, over 10 years.
22.
Yep, okay. So, you know, you got pride of ownership, But I just think it's the timing of, things have changed over time, like everything else, and so, so I would ask for a motion with that we change the on the property line side, that the green space, or whatever terminology you want to use, Dennis, would be at 1.5 feet. And is there anything else anybody wants to add to that, as a condition? Okay, so could I have well, leave it, are you all set at this point, or is there anything else you want to ask?
Any more arguing, would I get it all paved?
Yeah.
So I guess I have to accept it.
Okay, all right. All right, could I have a motion, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2014-035 for a variance to approve to pave within the setbacks from the lot line and building pursuant to section 6.1.10 of the zoning ordinance, with the following condition: that the applicant not pave the 1'6" dimension on the easterly side, and that remains a pervious buffer.
Okay, could I have a second?
May I just ask to clarify, what was that, 1.6 you said? Or 1.
1.5 feet, I'm sorry.
Okay, not to be
Correct.
arguing over an inch, but, okay. Second.
Roll call, please.
Motion was made by Member McCarthy and seconded by Member Paglia. Chairman Bailey?
Approve with conditions.
Chairman Peck?
Approve the conditions.
Member Peck and Member Callahan.
Approve of conditions.
Okay, good, everybody? Yep, okay.
All set?
Well, you've been approved.
Thank you.
We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Hopefully, at the end of the day, it works for you and your family.
It's going to be a flower bed, I guess.
All right, have a good evening.
Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you. All right, looks like we have no other matters before us this evening. Judy, anything to mention? Next meeting, looks like you gave us some handouts. Is that correct? Oh, okay. All right, guess maybe I didn't want to look at that. I thought that was your own homework you had this evening, yeah.
Oh, that's for you.
Okay. Any comments from any of the board members? Hearing none, like a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
And before we adjourn, I just wanted to, I should have recognized Mr. Callahan right at the very beginning, right? Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sure tonight was a nice indoctrination. Okay. And a second for the adjourn?
Second.
So moved. Good evening.